Hey there, this is Enda Quealy. I'm a hypnotic coach helping high achievers with addictive personalities, anxiety and depression to stop self-destructing and remain successful. And you are listening to the Us People podcast with the amazing Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yes People podcast. I'm laughing already. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I've got Enda here with me, who is a hypnotic coach. So if I fall asleep, right, while I'm interviewing him, you know why. Enda, thank you.
Or if you fall asleep.
No. Enda, thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast. How are you?
You're welcome. I'm good, and lovely talking to you, and thanks for having me.
No,
Brilliant
you're
to be here.
welcome. No, you too. So my first question, as I'm sure you already know, is I would love to talk about people's backgrounds of where they came from and where they grew up. So could you tell me a little bit about where you came from, where you were born, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Okay. So I was born in a mother and baby home in County Cork, Cork City in Ireland. So the very south of Ireland, south coast. So my natural mother, it was so taboo in the 70s, 60s. The adoptions were even done closed, so you don't even know where you come from. You know what I mean? So there's all this, and I did some work under hypnosis and with a spiritual medium, and found that there was actually birth trauma as well. They thought I was going to die when I was born, and but I survived. And I was put somewhere for 4 weeks and fed. I didn't get breastfed, unfortunately. I got some kind of, can you imagine how bad the formula was back in the 70s? So here you go, suck it up, baby. So so I got a poor replacement for breast is best, and then I was adopted by my parents. Amazing people, super kind. Absolutely loved by all the children that they taught. My mom died coming up on 3 years ago. She'd been teaching for 44 years, and like thousands of kids. Oh my God, the funeral was just like, we were like, oh my God, the people are still coming and still coming. It was like the biggest turn up.
Your mother had an impact.
Being a teacher. Absolutely, yeah. Because like year after year after year after year, you're going through about 30 kids.
Yeah.
So do the maths, and then loads of people loved her outside of that as well. So really loving, really caring family. My dad, he's retired, but he was a teacher for a similar length of time as well, just impacting loads of people. So I was adopted into a very loving and caring family, with 3 other siblings who we'd all come from different biological backgrounds, and there wasn't one biological connection between all 6 of us sitting down. But then you start to learn the mannerisms and mimic the parents, and we all become like each other, and we all have blue eyes and all this kind of stuff. So people didn't even know, but it was an interesting start. But for me, I figured that I experienced trauma in the birth, and then the separation anxiety, and then the there's abandonment stuff there as well, whether you know it or like it or accept it or whatever. So I had this fucking story then that I went around beating myself with from that point onwards. Oh my God. And then there was undiagnosed autism there as well, which no one had a clue about. So I was kind of winging it through school and just always ending up in this shit, always ending up in trouble. The social side of things, but this is what people normally do. It's like the polar opposite of that. So, and school was interesting as well. You know what I mean? Because, as a Christian brothers, you're going to burn in hell if you don't do X, Y, Z. Literally, you will literally burn in hell if you don't do this. And like they're children, they're like 4 or 5 years of age being programmed with this shit. And, that's in my experience, that is what you would call religious or
Yes.
spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
Or
Most
you have all these
definitely.
tiny little kids going around going, ah, I'm going to fucking burn in hell if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And literally actually believing it, you know?
Wow.
So yeah, we're off to a real positive start, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, hey, we're gonna end on one, so I'm happy with that.
Here we go. Here we go. So I guess, childhood and school and all that kind of stuff was tricky, is the bottom line for me. My mum taught me when I was in senior infant, so that's the second year in. So there was a lot of boundaries crossed and just kind of like, mammy, fuck's sake, mammy, all this kind of stuff in school. And and then you'd have teachers kind of quote unquote taking an interest in Jacqueline's son. He seems a bit wayward. I'll help.
Yes.
Which really, really helped me. Yeah. But
The way you said that.
because there's the thing with autism as well. It's like pathological demand avoidance.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
PDA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to think PDA was just an electronic device, until my son was born. And then, we found out all about PDA. And then I was like, Jesus, I fit in the same
Bracket.
box.
Yeah.
I only discovered it when he was going through his assessment. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is pretty cookie cutter stuff here.
Yeah.
So I went off and got that sorted. But it's very different for him. If I correlate his experience of being diagnosed at 5 and then kind of look at my experience of not being diagnosed at all, being diagnosed as bowled, as they say back home, just like, he is a rebel and he doesn't want to listen to anything. And I can't talk to him. I mean, my dad said that. He just couldn't talk. He just wouldn't listen. Wouldn't listen to anything. I said, geez, you're like that now yourself. Look how it's come full circle. Won't listen to anything.
See?
But, so it's the same. It's the same. It goes full circle. But like I repeated 6th class in primary school because I was just like, just not ready for secondary school at all. I was just climbing the walls. So eventually, I guess I had to go to secondary school. Because I couldn't repeat forever. I was getting big, So I went forward into secondary school, and there was an entrance exam to go in. I just fucking nailed the entrance exam, head and shoulders above anyone else.
See?
And they were like, Jesus Christ, this kid's got talent, or this kid has, there's something there. There's something like this kid is like, and I didn't learn it at school.
It's just
something
something
It was like
mentally
more
in
tapped
you.
into your innate wisdom, or your the knowing that we all can tap into until it's fucking beaten out of us at school. You know what I mean? Until it's kind of, so we get dumbed down in school as far as I can see. You're taught very basic things. But you're
But
not
they
taught,
do that on purpose.
Wow. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're right with me. They don't want you tapping into your inner wisdom,
which is there, and it's a beautiful thing to have because it's powerful.
Oh yeah, and it's helpful for everybody else, and everyone has a totally different experience. On this planet, everyone's here to do something, contribute something to this planet, something unique. And if one of us unlocks our uniqueness, everyone else gets to share it. You know what I mean? In the collective kind of wisdom, the collective consciousness. And that's just wow. Yeah, so it's an amazing thing to have finally gotten, because, through the whole religiosity and the indoctrination and all that stuff, my connection to spirit and spirituality was decimated by that, until it really came back. Oh man, I had a number of spiritual kind of experiences from 2016 on. And it really kind of went, I had 4 or 5 different experiences. And then my mum died, and I was over in Galway getting some stuff for the next few days because she was in hospital. She'd been in hospital for 3 days, and she had a huge brain aneurysm in the back, and there was no hope she was going to survive. But she hung along long enough for people to come and say goodbye to her. And I pulled into the car park and I felt this sensation go up the back of my neck. And it was like a physical sensation in the back of my neck. I said, okay, she's gone. What time is it? You know? Okay. So I called the time. I went up and she'd gone. It was like 4 minutes beforehand.
Oh, wow.
She'd gone. And this is me like going, oh my God, not like, I'm a believer. You know, it's like not down that rabbit hole, you know, but it was like, it was more like, Jesus Christ, you know, there is more. And I kind of, you know, throughout for about a year coming up to that point, I was like, there's much more than this. You know, I was just shut down from all that kind of stuff. A serious problem with, you know, the Vatican and all the bios there and with surrounded by their gold and silver and all this kind of stuff. They're just, and priceless artwork and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, not even to get into what the hell they've been covering up and why we actually tolerate them, you know. But all that stuff had a negative impact on my spirituality. And it has done for huge parts of the population in Ireland as well.
I can imagine.
There's a lot of hatred for the you know, the Catholic Church and the Christian Brothers and the nuns and all that kind of stuff because of what happened to them as kids, and, you know, beatings and abuse and all this kind of stuff. But I think the bottom line is they should have never been given the amount of control that they had. And, you know, slowly but surely that control is starting to diminish. But, so yeah, so I had a lovely childhood. And, but what I wanted to do when I was a kid, what I wanted to do was play drums. I used to play drums. I played drums when I was about 16. So when I moved into secondary school, my first 3 years in secondary school was great because I had an awesome teacher for 2 subjects, and she was our tutor as well. Her name was Ming Luk Nan, and she was just awesome, very, very positive, non-judgmental, talking to you like you have a brain in your head, not talking down to you, you know. And it's like, oh, brilliant, someone I can actually have a conversation with without feeling, you know, like I'm less than. So that was brilliant. And yeah, I think kind of went and did okay in the, you know, mid intercert, halfway through secondary school exams. And, but after that, it just declined and declined and declined. And it was just, you know, got into completely different kind of judgy assed teachers, etc. I'm not going to mention any of their names. And just went, this isn't working for me at all. I went through a year struggling through that, and started started up a band. There was this priest, you know, after all the stuff I said, you know, after all the stuff I've said about the Catholic Church, there was an amazing priest there called Father Pat Gilbert, and he was a fucking cool dude, you know. He arrived into school with a fucking black leather jacket. He had a car full of musical instruments. Like, he had a Yamaha Power 5 drum kit, which sounded amazing. Bass guitar by Honer, that little kind of, with the bass guitar with it's like the head chopped off, tiny little thing. And electric guitar and amps and all this kind of stuff. And he was so generous with his gear. There was like 2 bands started up using his equipment. And so there was a band formed. One of the guy was singing. His name is Mundy.ie. He's very very successful as a singer-songwriter, amazing singer-songwriter. He's still going. He's still performing. He's still playing. He's still writing. You know, the rest of us kind of ended up scattered to the wind. You know, we were just like, you know, it was awesome at the time. But I suppose just for me, I suppose having the focus and the drive, and this is what I want to do, and, you know, I know what I want to do, and these are the steps I'm gonna take. You know, I didn't have any of that. I just knew that I wanted to get out of school. My results weren't great at all. You know, I barely scraped by. I passed maths though for the first time, and I failed French. I was like, I used to always, I used to always pass. I used to always like do really well in French because I got on really well with the French teacher, and I could understand her, and it was like she's really good, And then just went through a series of just like, ugh, I can't do this in this way or whatever. So my French went down. I don't know how I passed maths, but I did. And then all the rest of the stuff was just basic, just pass. So I didn't get a huge amount of points to go on and do, should I put down like psychology and philosophy and all this kind of stuff because I liked the sound of it. So I suppose even back then I did like the sound of it. But had I paved the way to actually go ahead and actually, forge a career for myself at that point? No. All I wanted to do at that point was drink alcohol. So I started working behind the bar. I did a training how to learn how to become a bar manager down in Killarney in County Kerry, and I was there for a couple of years. And so it's just a very big drinking kind of culture, or like Ireland, I suppose. This is just even more so. But I was there for a couple of years, and then moved over to Cork City, and I was there for about 4.5 years, and I worked in a nightclub called Sir Henry's.
Oh.
That was house music. Oh my God. There was like an amazing club running there every Saturday night called Sweat.
You were sweating there, I'm sure you were.
Sweat. Oh, it was like a factory. You know what I mean? And it was just full of speakers, just a huge, amazing sound system, and just full of people, everyone in clubbing on a on a Saturday night. But then it was running many more nights a week. So you had like deep house, then you had drum and bass on deep house so Sweat on Saturday night. Then you had jungle, drum and bass on Sunday night. Then Monday night you had reggae. Tuesday night was indie. So you had 3 different floors open. Then what was Wednesday night again? Live music or something like that. Oh, techno, Imrama. Amazing. And then Thursday night you're into deep house. Much for the type of house music they played on Thursday night was like really grabbed me. Amazing. It was much more soulful and less cheesy than the stuff they played on Saturday night, in my opinion. And then Friday night you're back into indie again. So I was in there for years working in the bar and just absorbed in this culture. And everyone in kind of hospitality, would then start their thing. They would start drinking when everyone else had gone home. Excuse me. So we would, this is when I really lost my way. I'd started a kind of an IT, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking of? I started the most boring computer course you could think of. And it was like, well, you just kind of look at that and you look at this, and it was like, there's no way I was doing both, because if you do that, it's just so full on. You're going home at 5:30 the next day, like with your head up your ass, just, am I going to make it home at all kind of thing. And then you crash for a few hours, and now it's time to work, and you're going to bed at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then waking up at around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening, grabbing breakfast, gone to the nightclub again. So this went on for a while, but but it was such fun. It was such fun, and musically, it was just so expansive. And you hear the best of artists and the worst of artists.
Oh boy!
But really good. Really good quality music, So Cork was fun. Cork was a hell of a lot of fun. But, I needed to get out of there, because I could just see myself doing the same. If I'd stayed, it'd be like, what you call a Mr. and Mrs. can't get enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went traveling. I started I got a one-way ticket to Prague.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, beautiful, huh?
Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
there.
stunning. And I made my way down south. I ended up at the pyramids. 9 months later, the pyramids, they're nice. Yeah, grand. Maybe I go home now. It's just like it was a wild and wacky. It was a wild and wacky and challenging, ramble around the place through Eastern Europe and spending a few months in Greece and the islands, and spending a few months in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and then doing trips from there and spending some time in Egypt and along the Red Sea. It's just wow. They were innocent times. You know what I mean? Because you're just kind of making it up as you went along. Well, I suppose I still do. But it's like, okay. Yeah, it's kind of like I'm much more serious now, much more
The way you say it, I'm all serious now. Savia, seriously, I am.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose I've given you a long answer as to kind of where I've come from, kind of how I've kind of ended up at this point. But when I came back from traveling, I went back down to Cork. But then my sister and brother-in-law, a friend of mine from Sweden, showed me how to send an email while I was in Israel, and I was 99. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't start using email computers until I was well into my 20s. And so my computer skills were very, minimal. So when I came back, and my sister and brother-in-law recruited me into Roland, Ireland. So, Roland drum kits and synthesizers and all that good stuff. And Sennheiser microphones and headphones. So they're the Irish distributors for those two brands, and they had Canford Audio as well. You might even know from this massive, thick catalogue of stuff. So they were looking after that in Ireland, and they needed two. They had two employees that had kind of gone, and they had a major gap. And I was only supposed to be temporary, so I was like, I'm going to head off again and go to Australia and going to go to, But what happened was I just got into the cycle of working in that, and I didn't know. Right? But being in an office environment was the worst place for me. Just given all the, we act like this and we do this and these are the norms and this is how we communicate and this is all we do. And it's like fucking still at that point, just way out. And so it kind of became really obvious. And I was like, what am I going to do? This really isn't working for me. So I kind of formulated a plan, and actually while I was there, I did start to educate myself, right? I did start to go, first of all, I started doing graphic design, because that for me is just such a useful thing, because you know, as a photographer, like you could just, you have everything, whatever. Some people use Canva, I use Photoshop,
Lightrooms, Illustrator. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Absolutely. They're invaluable tools for any business. If you're self-employed, I suppose you could use Fiverr or Upwork or something like that, but it's nice to be able to do it yourself. So that was the first thing. And then I started getting into marketing. So marketing, advertising, and PR and sales, 4 streams over 1 year. And it was quite wide, but I learned a hell of a lot in it, particularly around sales and sales processes and how not to turn people off buying stuff, and how to just get your message right and attract people to you and all this kind of stuff. And then public relations. Interesting. But advertising really pinged me. And then, so the next year after that, I studied a year of creative stream advertising, where we got into radio production and editing and Pro Tools and all this stuff. And then, what my favorite part was art direction. And the guy who used to teach us art direction would come in with a brief that he was struggling with and then brainstorm it in the class. I remember giving him some really sweet solutions. He was just like, oh, fuck. I'm just after, this is after saving my ass, and it's worth probably thousands to him to get this right, or to his agency to get it right. He was right, though, to bring it in as a real world experiment to see what kind of ideas would come out. And he used to encourage us. The winners would get bottles of wine.
Oh,
So he knew the way into our hearts and minds, the same like any good advertiser does.
that's true. That's true.
And they'd have shed loads of stuff, alcohol in the agencies and stuff. But it was really good because it kind of allowed me to get into my own mind, others as well, but just in terms of how to describe stuff in a very detailed way. Is it a photograph? Is it a graphic? What kind of graphic? Describe the mood of it. All the little details that you would use to then give a brief to somebody. You had all that language. So it was about all that in the language, and there was a design element to it as well. So, and copywriting, the copywriting was skin deep. I know copywriting was much more of an art than what we did, but we had the graphics to put it all together, the design studies, the art direction, and then a bit of radio. I suppose you could use that for audio and stuff like that over that. So that was really interesting. And I figured I wanted to end up working in an advertising agency. But what happened was I became the distributor for a brand of audio equipment called M Audio.
Oh, I know M Audio. Yeah.
Yeah. So cheap and cheerful stuff. And I was the Irish distributor for M Audio for about 6 years. And, the whole thing went tits up on me. In 2008, just the way I'm wired, and it wasn't the kind of business that I was going to be successful at. In hindsight, right, which is always brilliant, 2020 hindsight, if I knew what I know now back then, before I set it up, I would have made a killing. I would have just set it up, just me, and I would have done third-party logistics for all the stock, and I would have just gone around in a nice car talking to everyone. I wouldn't have bothered having an office. But the way we did it is like we did office. It was a family business. Like it was like my sister as well, and my mum was on the thing of directors as well. So it was bound to fail.
Don't say that.
It was doomed from the start, But yeah, it was an interesting time. But it was like just this is a thing to be aware of, I suppose, when you're getting into business. There's all the VAT and all the bookkeeping and all that stuff, and unless you're naturally good at that and you're not allergic to it, like I am still, you need to outsource it. You need to outsource that, because if you've an inclination that you're not going to be doing that, then you just won't do it, and you'll be tripping up and all over the place, and particularly in a stock carrying cash flow negative business like distribution. You have to buy all the stock, sit on it, you have to sell it to shops, and then wait to get paid, while you then have to pay the distributors. It get very, very messy, but so when the 2008 kind of crash came along, we were just wiped completely, because we were buying in dollars, and stuff became very expensive, or stuff we had already bought became due, and we had to pay out more for it. And we've been selling from euro into the UK, and there was very little, there used to be a nice return on doing that, but then it became like almost even Stevens. And I was like, oh my God, we're just like, after taking like a total load of flack, it was like holes everywhere, so ended up closing that, just kind of limped it forward for another few months. My son was born then, into chaos. out of chaos comes.
That'd be a good film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But at that point we moved, my now ex, and we were living in Dunleary. It's a small town on the south coast of Dublin. It's very close to Dublin. So we were living there. And 5 weeks after Nisha's my son. It's spelt Naoise. It's like
It's a nice
noise with
name.
an A. Yeah. People look at it and go, huh? Yeah, it's like noise with an A after the N. So he's back tomorrow, like I was saying earlier on, from 2 weeks in Ireland. But yeah, so he was born. The community midwives in Dunleary around South County Dublin were absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. Coming out to the apartment all the time and making sure if it was fine and making sure I was okay too, But we moved to Sligo on the northwest of Ireland, and it was magical. Absolutely stunning coastline and waves. The Wild Atlantic Way is a drive that you can take from the very south coast all the way up to the northwest coast. It is absolutely stunning. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend anyone who's listened to this to go at some point when you can. I see you can still get the ferry.
If they don't try and lock you down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ridiculous at the moment out there. But was there for about 5 years, and then Aoife was studying her PhD, and she got a job in Galway as a human rights law lecturer, and a totally different track. You know what I mean? We were kind of going along, it was like separation.
It was like this.
Separation time. It was just, we were just going down two totally different tracks altogether. And, I found all that kind of stuff that she was studying really heavy. There was a big heavy energy around it. You know what I mean? You think of human rights law and all the atrocities that have been committed or are still being committed on deeper and subtle levels, but it's still happening. Just found it very heavy. And so we were about to break up in Galway. Then my mother died. She said, I'll stop you. But she died almost 3 years ago. And we were planning to come over. We were planning to come over to Colchester or somewhere around Colchester, because that's where she was ending up as her lectureship. And so she went over a month earlier. Myself and Nisha stayed, and we came over a month afterwards. So his school was going to be in Frinton-on-Sea. So I said, well, we should be living in Frinton then, make it easy for him. And just, so we ended up out here. And like I showed you earlier on, when I moved out a year later, we just, we kind of tried in one way, right? We tried to suck it up, but we didn't try anything that could have worked. So both of us wanted out, so we kind of, and I was kind of like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing here? Why am I in England? I have all this stuff going on back home, but yet I'm here. But I'm kind of coming to the point where I had to actually change up. I had to figure out what I wanted to do and who I was. And I forgot to mention, actually, before we moved over here, I self-diagnosed as autistic. And this was about a month before my mother died. It just came to me as a bolt out of the blue, because when my son was diagnosed, it was like, okay, he's answering these questionnaires and stuff like that, and he's resisting and reacting to them, and this is just fucking traumatizing him. I was looking at it, I felt so bad for him, because he was like, what the fuck are we doing this for? This is like ridiculous, and I was looking at the way he was approaching and his thought processes around the way he was thinking and stuff like that, and I was like, man, this is me. And it happens quite a lot with undiagnosed adults. They just go through life and they're just like, why is everything wired arseways? And why isn't life easy? And they discover that, oh, right, there's a massive neurological difference in my operating system. And it's just very much humanoid and not human at all. It's very different. We look human, but we ain't.
Yeah, I like the way you said that.
You know. So I self-diagnosed, and then when we came over to jolly old England,
Hey.
I decided to avail of this amazing NHS that you have here.
Oh boy.
And just went through some mental health supports. I was actually going through some real shit, and Mind were amazing. The Mind charity. And there were a few other places that I went to, and they kind of set me on the path towards getting a diagnosis. And Mind, there was a woman called Jackie Batchelor, and she was amazingly helpful. And this is more about, right, you're breaking up, right? We want to give you some support until you get your diagnosis. Because I'm having to move out and fucking I'm having to sign these like unreasonable agreements and all this shit. What the fuck is happening? I'm not signing that. That's ridiculous. All this kind of crazy stuff was going on. And she was really supportive. And, moving out, oh, geez, I'm fucking smash broke. And, oh, it was just, am I going to make it through the month? And all this kind of crazy stuff was happening. So, and this was coming up to the diagnosis. And the thing is, right, your point of view creates your reality. That's a very access consciousness. I don't know if you've heard of access consciousness. A guy called Gary Douglas started with it in the 90s, and he channeled information into this reality from elsewhere through an entity called Raz. This is where we go, woo, really woo. But what transpired out of that is the access bars, which is a 32 point. So you're on your head, you have 32 different energy points, and the hands-on process, they're little points all over the head, and you touch combinations of them over an hour or so, and that just allows a lot of judgments, fixed and significant points of view,
yes,
that you could have inherited from thousands of years ago to just melt away, and it's just a very powerful therapy.
I need him to touch my head. I need him to touch my head.
Yeah, I bought a head actually for myself. I bought a head recently because when it sounds mental, but when you run, it was a dummy head. You run bars on a dummy head, your own bars turn on. When you run someone else's bars, your own bars run as well. So it's a hands-on energetic process, and you're asking them to run. So we're like electromagnetic beings, and a lot of this magnetism just holds information in place that's not even yours. It's picking it up from the ether. So all of these thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we're, which are kind of lower vibrations of I suppose the human side to our overall beings, which is like we're energetic beings, having this human body as a vehicle, but the body is in fact in our energy rather than our energy being in the body.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me.
Because our energy expands out beyond the universe.
Yes.
The universe is tiny compared to our reach of expanse, and all of these concepts. I'm fascinated with all that stuff. It is just, for me, that is just like crack. You know what I mean? So it is just totally Moorish, to put it mildly. But I've only gotten into access consciousness more recently, just more deeply over the last few months. But I can bring it back to the support I was getting. And then I was going, your thoughts of you create your reality. I was really thinking I was autistic, and acting more autistic than I do now. I think my autism is subtler now than it was back then. I was self-diagnosed, and then it just went freewheeling, way more way more symptoms and much more exaggerated. And all the way up, but I always had very sensitive hearing anyway. I could hear a pin drop, and it's more than that when you'd have 2 or 3 people talking at the same time. I would just like turn to jelly in my head, because I didn't have the tools to actually come out of my head and move into your awareness. And once you're into your awareness, you start perceiving what is coming out of people's heads. It doesn't matter what's coming out of their mouths, because it's not usually what they're thinking anyway.
That's true. That's very true.
It's not so many people who are synchronized to, saying what they're thinking and doing what they're saying. That beautiful synchronicity that is so elusive today, in the kind of, in the majority of cases, I would think. So I was stuck in my head, oh, fuck, I'm autistic, what am I fucking going to do now? And and I'm going to do everything. That's what I'm going to do now. That's what I ended up doing. But so I got the diagnosis kind of sorted and went in, and yeah, she said like fucking 100%. She said this. I'm not saying it for fun. Like she said, just totally 100%. I don't know if that's a thing. You're 100% autistic, but yeah, it's like, yeah, you're autistic, but it's like yourself from your own experience. It's like a massive spectrum. So funnily enough, right, the day before intervention, the day before, I'd been speaking to one of my coaches, right? So how I started along this journey in the first place is, see the singing bowls behind me there? I started studying sound therapy, sound healing, because before we kind of knew we were going to break up in the relationship, I was starting to feel in my body masses of stress, from emotional stuff. It was like financial pressure. There was like
where does stress come from? Because that's one thing I would love to ask you is, where does stress actually come from for you to actually start feeling it?
Your body is a conscious entity that you can have. You can choose to have a conscious relationship with your body, going, hey body, what would you like to eat? Hey body, what would you like to do now? Hey body, what do you think of her? Hey body, all this kind of stuff. And if you're tuned into your body will tell you what it desires to wear, eat, drink. You know what I mean? You may be vegetarian, but your body may like a nice Mackie D's every once in a while or whatever. And when you're in communion with your body, you have a happy body, and I wasn't in communion with my body. I was totally detached. Guy was always kind of obsessing about, at that point I wasn't drinking, so I was obsessed with 1980s BMWs, obsessed with drumming, building back up the drum kit.
That's why you were talking about BMWs.
Huh?
That's why you was talking about BMWs earlier on. It makes sense now.
Absolutely. 1980s BMWs, the kind of the shark-nosed faces, and then the 4 round lights, not like the horrible looking things they have now, Just there's a homogenization in today's vehicles that is just so unattractive. I think I love the older vehicles. So my body was telling me that I needed to pull my head out of its arse. And, it's like, you're not happy, you're burning out. There's a thing called autistic burnout as well. And that can happen if you've just lost sight of yourself. You're not being true to who you really are. I was kind of like, am I doing the right thing by being in the audio industry for 20 years, being a rep, selling audio equipment? I do love all that stuff. But is there more? Is there going to be more? Are you happy in this relationship? No. It's like, What are you going to do? What's happening? I noticed that when we would go away on holidays as a family, I would get excruciating pain in my shoulders. Warning, it was just like the connection or whatever it was. I don't know. And frozen shoulder has been described as being worse than childbirth pain by women. I've experienced the birth of my son, like it was, looked mightily uncomfortable. But, I went into a Facebook group of over 3,000 women, Frozen Shoulder Friends, it was called. And they were like, it's worse. It's worse. I've had 3 kids and this is fucking worse. At least when you have your kids, it's over. It goes on for 3-4 years in some cases.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? So yeah, for me, it's still going on a little bit. It's like my shoulders haven't returned to the full 100%, free movement as they were. Like, I'm not like I'm going around. I actually did go around like a T-Rex at one point. It was just like, oh my God, they were just, the balls were just frozen into the sockets, both shoulders. Like, if that wasn't a scream from my body to actually sort myself out, fucking now, I don't know what was.
Yeah.
So I started using CBD. I went to the doctor, and course, what would the doctor prescribe? If you were a doctor, what would you prescribe for pain?
I just know doctors. They're not dogs. Doctors are not dogs. I don't know where that came from. I know that doctors.
Meme.
You just see some, you see dogs and doctors. So that's a good one, actually. You see, every time I used to go to the doctor, because I don't anymore, and there's a reason behind it, they just used to throw any medication that they could subscribe to. But to me, pharmacies are just legalized drug dealers. That's how I see it. They legalize drug dealers. And they get you to take these drugs, and then you become addicted to them.
Yeah.
And you want more and more. When you don't get it, you become agitated, aggravated. And it turns your personality into someone different. And I just said to myself, no, I don't want none of that. So even if I have to be in excruciating pain, I have to do it how can I say, the more herbalistic way, or more natural way. That's the word I was looking for. More natural way, in order to heal my body. So
yeah, I was pretty much on the same page as that. 'Cause when they started suggesting opioid pain killers, I was just ran out of there. I could just see myself in Percocet. Just using much heavier stuff and just getting more and more and more addicted. So I decided to start using CBD, but then I ended up using cannabis. I was stoned for about 2 years. My shoulders felt great.
I'm high, but my body feels great.
Yeah. I'm healing deep. It was just...
I'm healing in a soulful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, it was awesome, and it was careless, and it was inconsiderate. In other ways, it was all these things. What happened was that it allowed me to think in a much different way about where I was going, what my life had been up till that point. And I was like, fuck, man, I have it all arseways. Because I was able to tap into myself and tap into my body. Whereas before, I had been totally separated from it. And I'm not promoting it, by the way, because, after a while, it became addictive. And like you described, what could happen if you became addicted to pharmaceutical stuff, I became addicted to cannabis. And, just saw it as the be all and end all, my medicine. And that not only did in fairness, it was amazing for my frozen shoulders. I used to limber up. I used to be able to limber up when after I had vaped some cannabis and some edibles and stuff like that, and some oil and all. And I sometimes had it all together, and it was very fucking messy. You're just kind of crawling to bed, That happened a few times. We were watching a movie, you just like melted in the couch, and fucking crawled to bed, literally crawled to bed. So it's when using medicinal cannabis, folks, just be careful. But with hypnosis just allowed me to just go, geez, I don't need it at all. I don't need it at all. What cannabis is doing, I can actually ask my subconscious mind to do. Fuck's sake. So it was like what I've been doing for the last 2 years. If I'd found that first, I wouldn't have needed cannabis at all. But yeah, go ahead.
If you didn't go on the journey that you went through, do you still think that you'll be the person who you are today?
No. If I hadn't experienced all that chaos, it was just absolute chaos. And as you can tell from me now, it's just a place of inner knowing and clarity and beauty.
You sound so peaceful. Even when you first came on and you were telling me your story, you were like calm, chilled. You told me off because I didn't book my session. But after you told me off, you were fine.
Yeah.
You're like, Samuel, why didn't you book your freaking session?
Do you know why I wanted you to experience the session before? Because you would have a reference to what I do.
But what
I mean?
What I can do is I will have my session, and then I will do a follow-up with you and everyone who's listening, and say, I had my session. And I most probably will feel I'm sure I will, because I remember we were talking before we started recording about people feeling the effects instantly of what they were looking for. But that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, how do you do the process? So you do so many different things. You help people, right? Let me get my sheet out to make sure I get it correct. You help people with achieving. So high achievers, for instance. You help people who have addictive personalities. You help people who have anxiety, depression. You help people with so many different things. Talk to me about hypnosis and how does it actually really work?
Yeah. Okay. So you're feeling sleepy. Very sleepy.
I was for a little while.
See,
Are you trying to get me to sleep? Are you trying to get me to sleep on here?
It's so funny. That's what people think of, first of all. They think they're going to end up like, I was going to say, barking like a chicken and clucking like a dog, But they ended up just kind of on stage making idiots out of themselves and, mind control and vampires and Hollywood and all this kind of stuff. That's what a lot of people think of, right? But hypnosis is a permission-based therapy. If you want to experience this, if you want to allow your subconscious mind to make changes, not my subconscious mind. What I do is, I'll talk you through one process, right? And actually, if we wrap up, right, how I started in this, the day I was diagnosed with autism, that was the morning. Oh, you're autistic. The afternoon, I listened to an audio that changed my life. And it just totally boom, And I remember just letting go of all of this shit that was locked into my body for decades. Because I allowed myself with an open mind to go in and experience it. I can listen to that same audio sitting up and not allowing the process to take place if I want. I can resist it if I want. You know what I mean? There's no like helplessness or lack of control or loss of control or having someone take control of you. It's all bullshit. So I allowed myself to go with the process of that audio, and there was like 12 different processes within that. It was very powerful. And I just remember there were a lot of tears, just floods of just like relief, the body shaking, just like, holy shit. When I got out of it, I just like, it was an hour. And I just felt like a different person, and, Yeah, Martin Rothery was the guy who put it together. He's my tutor. He has a business called Sanomentology. Ooh, Sanomentology. So that's the study and healing of the mind. Sanomentology.com. There's a plug for you, Martin. Don't say I'm not good for you or good to you. But yeah, he is an amazing therapist and really broad-minded. You know, so when we think about hypnosis, it's like, again, you know, if we move beyond thinking about Hollywood and move beyond thinking about vampires and dogs and chickens and all this kind of stuff, you can then get the stereotypical image of this, what I'd call a mild-mannered, well-meaning mindfucker of ineptitude, wearing a kind of a cream cardigan and just using antiquated tools and techniques that make you worse. Because I've dealt with people who've come to me who have gone to these kind of sessions and they'll be fucking traumatized, re-traumatized. They've gone there with PTSD and they've been asked to sit in the pain, sit in it, work through it, and they re-traumatize them. So the way we work, right? If I was to do steps with you now, like steps is a process. I won't run the process now because it's very powerful. It's subconscious elimination of pain signals and symptoms. Okay. So I talk to your subconscious mind. So I'm now talking to Savia's subconscious mind. If you're there now and happy to talk to me, give me an answer for yes with a nod of your head, kind of thing. And so you're nodding there consciously, right? But in that, I ask you to don't assist or resist. Don't do anything. Just close your eyes, follow my voice. So I'm now talking to your unconscious mind. And then I'm here to help with XYZ, whatever the issue is. Could be this addiction to something, could be anxiety, could be trauma, depression, you name it. It could be physical pain. So someone's knee, just they experienced damage to the knee and the knee has recovered and the pain should be gone and all the x-rays show it's fine, but there's still a phantom kind of what's that there for? It's the body holding, and the subconscious mind controlling the pain being there. It's kind of maybe as a reminder or a warning. Or you hear people suffering from fibromyalgia and their body is keeping them debilitated and inside, doesn't want them to go out. There's a reason for, usually around fibromyalgia, it can be about this person was a very high achieving person and they burnt themselves out and their body is going, you're going to have a fucking heart attack. So I'm going to keep you safe. So they run all these programs to create all of that, all of those symptoms in the body to keep them safe, to keep them indoors. I'm just throwing that out there as an example. So that first process called steps. So we ask the subconscious mind to delete and remove anything to do with X, whatever you're trying to deal with. And in its place, you can go for the lower harmonics of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, patterns, programs, and responses that will create happiness, joy, peace, gratitude, love, and everything that you enjoy, so you'll be safe and happy. Because the subconscious mind, its function is to keep you safe. But it doesn't, oh shit, sorry, yeah. You're not happy, you're not healthy, but you're safe. You're alive. You're alive, yeah, but look at my fucking life. So it's like you need to get all that straight. So mind mediation. So it's a communication with the subconscious mind. My subconscious mind, your subconscious mind are in communion with each other. Yeah. So there is this whole kind of quantum communication where there is light being emitted from our subtle bodies. That's how we really communicate, and then we go and spoil it, by just using language and just fucking it all up completely and not saying what we're communicating. And for being incongruency in what's coming across. So talking with the unconscious or the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is awesome, because when you think about it, the subconscious mind can handle 11 million bits of data per second. And that's while we're talking. While we're talking and having this conversation, while I'm talking, that's what's happening with my subconscious mind, right? My conscious mind can handle 140 bits. That's it. And when we're children, up to the age of 7, it's 20 million. Yeah, and this is why so many people that come to me and they're saying that they've problems with depression, they always had this, and now they have addiction and stuff like that. Most times we can trace it all the way back to something that happened in the childhood. And the thing is, right, we don't sit down and map it out and talk it through and do all this kind of cognitive shit, because that is the least effective way and the least efficient way and the least kind way to do it. The kindest way for you to do it is so that you don't get re-traumatized and you don't have to actually relive all that hard past experience that made you. Thing is, right, I go another level deeper on this. Mm-hmm. People usually think that it's the recent trauma. Yes, this happened, and then everything just, like I had a client who's experiencing flashbacks for 13 years, every hour.
That's every a lot of flashbacks.
From a really deeply traumatic childhood experience. And, she went into addiction and all this kind of stuff just to shut off that part of her mind, because she didn't want to experience all that, but she was kind of coming out of that. But then the flashbacks were coming back, So, addiction worked. There's a question, right? What's right about my addiction that I'm not getting? My addiction served me by keeping me alive, because I was suicidal. I was suicidal in my teens. And when I discovered alcohol, I wasn't. It was a really positive message for everyone out there, folks. Maybe I'll get signed by some beer company or something like that.
Vodka, or
yeah. But so for me, it saved my life, but it made my life absolutely unmanageable, and I really suffered. I really fucking suffered with alcoholism, because it stripped away, all of any semblance of connection with people, relationships. You wouldn't have any hope of, for me, every last penny went on being out drinking. So it was so I was self-sabotaging myself financially as well by doing all that, and in many other untold ways. However, it kept me alive. And this client as well, Nana, you'll see her testimonial on my website. Addiction kept her alive for many, many years as well. But when she wanted to start kind of coming back into herself, all the flashbacks started again. It's just but 3 sessions in, they were gone. Just 3 sessions. But just thing is, it wasn't just that. There was so much more. There was, that particular incident was what was flashing back, but there was many other traumas that had happened. And what happens is we sometimes think of a more recent or the most obvious trauma, that's what this PTSD is revolving around. That's it. But usually there are precursors to that act as little anchors. Say one of the sessions we do is really, really deep, and it brings you into a state of ultra height. If you know hypnosis, you'll know it's a very, very deep hypnotic state that, time and space, you lose all sense of where your body is, all this kind of stuff. And it's like you turn into light. You know what I mean? And from that space, you can go through anything. You can create time. Just say you have a minute to do one thing. You can create days out of that if you want. It's like science fiction type stuff, but it's not really as consciousness. It's what we're all capable of that they don't tell us we are.
Because they don't
They
want us to
don't
have
tell us
that
about
much
this.
power.
They don't teach you about this at school, folks.
That's
But
true.
we're all capable of it. We're all capable of it. So in this one, right? This one's called the Schrödinger protocol, and it's like based around quantum physics. So that in every moment, the choices are endless. The possibilities are endless. Nothing is fixed. Everything is fluid. And in that state, you can go back to a point where your existence started. And this could be for people who believe in past lives.
Yes.
This could be billions of years ago.
This is like me. Yeah. So this one is me.
Yeah. So you could go all the way back there, go to every single one of your past lives, create all the time you need within 2 minutes.
Can we do that one?
What usually happens is I do a process of 4, right? The first one, you go into a castle. You go through a forest and you go into a castle, and I leave you in the castle for 10 minutes and you explore the castle, and everyone's castle is different. And people end up in cities and I ended up in the Valley of the Dinosaurs, of course. I always end up in the basement as well. Demons in the basement. And it's just, so demons, it's kind of like you're tackling your fears.
Yeah.
For me, that's what that represents. Everyone will have a different take on things. So if you believe you've been around the block a few times, and thing is, I know some people don't really receive that kind of information. They discuss just bullshit. But when you hear about the works and the records of a woman called Dolores Cannon, she did amazing work and documented over like 10,000 sessions with different people, and they're going back into past lives. And I did a past life regression before, and I was it didn't work amazingly well for me. There was a big block of energy that wouldn't allow me to go any further. She said, there's something blocking you from going in. I wasn't supposed to. I was poking around where I wasn't ready for it yet, I think. So there was something preventing me from going in.
Was that to protect you, or do you think it was
it was to protect me.
Okay.
It was to protect me from just going, I wasn't ready. It was something I was supposed to do here first. But I saw a kind of a very piratey looking sleeve, on an old wooden galleon. Yeah. And that was cool. And then another part, I was excavating around the pyramids and all that stuff, But I was like, sure, this is like the start of Jurassic Park. So you just don't know where it's coming from. But so that didn't go very well, that session, because I just couldn't get past this kind of wall of light. And I was under hypnosis, and but there was a block there that was preventing me from going further. But I came back to it. But the Schrödinger allows you to go through it it's just like, without even experiencing what is actually happening, you're actually just going, you're just going through it like lightning, faster than lightning. It's like speed of space. What's faster than the speed of space? I don't know, but it's that speed.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can fold time and create time and allow it to go on for as long as you want when you're in that state, but it's just 2 minutes.
It sounds like forever, but it goes so quick.
Absolutely. Thing is, right, this is another thing I'm going to mention, right? And I'm going all over the shop here, but I'm just kind of giving you a sprinkling of giving you a sprinkling of what this kind of stuff is and how much more exciting it is compared to normal hypnosis. Normal hypnosis can be obviously extremely powerful, and we can use NLP and wordplay and all this kind of stuff, and it can be very quick and very, very effective. And what I think is the flaw with all that is that it's only as good as the practitioner.
That's true. That's very true.
And some other hypnosis that I've experienced is it's from the practitioner's point of view. It's their opinion. Sure, what the fuck do they know about you? Do you know what I mean? It's like, so the best entity to decide what changes should be made, how and when, is your subconscious mind. And we do a process that links up the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. The iCloud. I just heard myself saying, I say, a lot. So funny. I have a friend in the States, like she's always saying, I know, fuck. She's saying, now I'm saying it, it's my arm.
Oh dear. I love it.
But it's exciting. But here's where it gets kind of like crazy. When you have someone who goes into what we call an interactive lucid dream. And all we do is, okay, so you see that door, and sometimes I go, there's a sign on that door. It's going to be, I don't know what that sign is, but it's something that's uniquely meaningful to you. And you'll imagine whatever you're going to imagine. And someone else will imagine whatever they're going to imagine. And they go, okay, let's go through this and see what happens. And every time someone goes through, it's something completely different. And their subconscious mind is showing them, okay, one client went through and there was a church. I'm not going in there, went over to the left, going, oh, there was a church again. So it's like your subconscious mind wants you to go in there and deal with whatever it is that you're trying to avoid. What you're avoiding in your head is resulting in the physical pain that you're experiencing, is resulting in your addictions, your anxiety, your depression, and all this stuff. It's based on you being, disconnected from your true self. And we can, go through these experiences in a very visual and a very fun way. And what we ask the subconscious to do is to create safe analogies around the traumatic experiences if they were traumatic. So you don't have to go reliving them. You can experience an analogy that refers to that, and you still get the healing around all that, but you don't have to re-experience it. Some people do because they want to, but you don't have to. Some people want to know what happened that night. I want to know. And because your subconscious mind remembers everything, your subconscious plays it back for you. You know what I mean? I want to know what happened and then what happened after that. And I know something happened. And now I know. It's not as bad as I thought.
See? So it's just going through the process of it. Oh, you say, bastards.
or else it's like, the bastard, And it's like, well, fuck it. At least I know and I can get on with my life. Yeah. And all that stuff just melts away out of the body then. Because, we use that to get clarity. I mean, I work with business clients as well. I work with companies that have R&D departments, research and development. Like you stuck for brainstorm. Okay, brainstorming is after bringing us so far. Imagine going in dreamscaping and coming up. First of all, you get the space you require to go much deeper on your ideas. And then stuff will come to you and you come back out going, okay, if you didn't get the eureka moment while within the lucid dream, you'll have the space for it to come in afterwards, so yeah, because one of my friends, I like I said before, I run some of these sessions for fun. I ran one with one of my friends in Cork, and he works in Apple. He said you could totally see it, in use there in software testing and software creation, because it just allows a lot of that stuff you get locked up in your head to just be released out of your mind. And you come back in with a totally fresh perspective on things. So there are many uses for it, but the reason I'm in the niche where I help successful people because they can afford me. You know what I mean? Because when I went going, first of all, I help people with anxiety, depression, and addictions because that's my story. That's who I want to help, But I was attracting people who couldn't afford to pay me. So I was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work as a business, you know? So I'm going to have to re-pitch myself. Okay. There's another way that I can work with people who, you know, and high achieving is just one way of saying you've got money. You know, there are many other ways to achieve in life, you know, like Mahatma Gandhi didn't have much money. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that, you know, because you can't afford me, you're not a high achiever or whatever. It just works. And because I use that as my tagline, you know, on LinkedIn, it's like I help high achievers with addictive personalities. I'm not saying you have addictions, but addictive personalities could mean that work is your addiction. You could be driving around in Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff, but you could be deeply disconnected and unhappy. And many of the clients I've worked with are of that.
I thought I was going to ask you that, but then you answered it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I'm just working my way through your questions.
Yeah, I know. You're doing good. You know that I haven't even asked you really any of my sheet because I know that you've gone through it bit by bit.
Yeah. I know it's nice to have it organic, isn't it?
Yeah,
just
it's more refreshing.
Have a conversation.
It's just refreshing rather than you having to look on your sheet and say question by question. It's more refreshing this way, and that's why I like it. I felt like I didn't even have to ask you really that much because you've answered the majority of the questions authentically yourself.
Well,
and for everyone to listen.
Yeah, there's so much more I could say, you know, but like just experiencing it is going to make, you know, it's just going to open things up for you. That you.
So guys, I'm going to tell the guys, okay? I'm going to tell everyone that I will go through a session. And once I go through the session, we both will come back on and talk about the session, if that's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because that way people get a better understanding.
Yeah, and do you know what could be really useful? Because I know I went all over the map here. That's just the way I am, right? Went all over the place. And, you know, hopefully if you're still listening to this, fair fucks to you. You know, you've got an awesome attention span. You know, but if you have any questions, because I know I touched on some things, you know, and I know myself, I touched on that, but then I went somewhere else, and then I went somewhere else, and then I went somewhere else, just followed the energy. But if there were, you know, if there was something that I was just about to start talking on and then went on to something else, can you ask me?
Yeah,
just
of course.
Send in your questions.
Yeah.
If that's a possibility. Yeah. So I almost touched on something. I almost went somewhere. What was that going to be? Or any questions at all, just send them in. I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
That's perfect. So hear that, guys? So once you listen to this and you have any questions about anything that you're going through and you would love to ask, please do. And we'll get it answered for you because that's what we're here for. So,
yeah, absolutely. I say one thing as well, right? Like I work with high flying individuals, right? Because they can, and you know, business people and high flying people who have the ability to change lives at that level.
Yes.
Then that's me helping loads of people.
Yes, I agree with you. Know? Most definitely.
Yeah. Like I worked with a mixed martial artist in Ireland, and he's an amazing coach. And he's coaching people who can't afford his coaching. And he coaches them anyway. I guess that's just fucking awesome. You know? So in that spirit, right, I'm running a group session, right? So the sessions that I would run with top end clients, I'm running a series of 4 sessions starting on Thursday, the 20th of August at 8:30. And I run them over Zoom. So if you put on your headphones, you don't even have to see me. You know what I mean? You don't even have to have me see you. You can just put on your headphones, find somewhere nice and comfortable to relax. Make sure you're not going to be disturbed. It could take about an hour and a half. And I go through the 4 sessions, the 4 hypnotic sessions that I use within my longer program of 12 weeks where I do the coaching aspect as well. But this 4 session transformation, is close to what I would be running. So you could get that for 15 quid a shot. £15 for each session. And I have audios as well that I'm going to be recording with my lovely microphone. Big shout out to Aston Stealth. Aston microphones for the Stealth microphone. It's just amazing. I love it.
It is a really nice microphone.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's why.
absolutely.
That's why he sounds so smooth. You know. That's why. That's why he.
Yeah.
When he first came on,
I'm on the late night DJ setting.
The house one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a female setting as well. I won't turn that on.
Oh, okay. Hey, we'll do that after the recording. We'll do that. We'll do that one.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll be Mr. Squeaky for that one.
Oh dear.
So look, if anyone wants to look me up, Enda Quealy, right? My Facebook page is probably the easiest way. I'm more active on my personal Facebook. It's just ENDA QUEALY. So if you look for me on Facebook, you'll find my personal page, or you'll find my Enda Quealy, and then there's a hyphen, and then it's Hypnotic Coaching. On that Facebook page, you will find that event. So all the events will be put out there, and it's like, if you think it sounds too high end and I'm not a high achiever and all this kind of stuff, just come along to one of the group sessions. I've had people's lives change on the fucking group sessions. I shit you not. People who struggled with all kinds of stuff. Just people who needed more confidence, needed for their anxiety to go. For all this kind of loop, I keep thinking this bullshit, keep self-defeating myself. People who wanted a calmer way of being in this reality, that they could never have based on whatever their life experience was. People who needed to let go of stuff around relationships. People who wanted to stop eating so much. I've had people who come onto the session, and because that's what they brought to the session, and that's what they asked their subconscious mind to work on in the session, that's the result they got. But there was like 40 odd. I think actually, no, the most I've been on, I think have been about 30. But I have a room for about 100.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I'd love to just go, wow, imagine getting 100, imagine getting thousands.
I think you could get it.
Yeah, I'll see. I could do with some help marketing it. That's the thing. I'm awesome at doing the sessions and stuff like that, but I kind of run out of steam when it comes to the whole social media. I know how you could do it using paid advertising and all that kind of stuff and scaling up. You could easily do it, but organically reaching the right people and reaching people who could really do with it, and for that to go somewhere organically, I think would be awesome as well. So there you go. So I'm not sure when you'll do your session and when we'll come back again. So I'm just plugging it because we may not be back before the 20th, but people could actually experience it for themselves before then. And if not, they can drop me a line.
Perfect. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, you're so welcome, and thanks for having me, and thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me run away with things there. It's like a runaway train.
No, I love it because you got to be just you, and I didn't want it any other way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that meant a lot to me, just you being it. And you said, like you said, you shared so much information from different aspects of things, and I know that it's going to help so many people, and hopefully get more people come to you as well for help.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I will help anyone who comes my way in one way or the other. If they can't afford my fees, they can afford the audios. The audios they're very reasonably priced. And then the group sessions, you get as close as what you're going to get to me from a one-to-one.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
At least you have me live. I obviously can't tailor it to you individually because there's going to be more people on, but you're going to get a lot of my energy because I bring a huge amount of channel, a lot of energy into those. So it goes beyond hypnosis. It's not just, It's not just like, and you're back in the room. There's a lot of energy and a lot of vortexing to get woo around it that happens on the calls. And everyone shares the energy and everyone shares the experience. So the more people on it, the more powerful it gets. You know? Yeah. Ooh, I'm getting excited now.
No, I like it. I like it.
I did 11 weeks. I did 11 weeks on the trot, and they were awesome. They were a hell of a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to getting going again on the groups.
No, that's perfect. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Yes People podcast. You've been a brilliant guest. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Yes People podcast. Please remember you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also donate to the Yes People podcast so I can continue to speak to beautiful people, so we can continue to get more wisdom and understand each other and just communicate. You can do this by simply going onto the Savia Rocks website, which is www.savia.rocks, or simply just typing paypal.me/Us People podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
All right. that was batshit crazy. Thanks a million for going with it, going with the flow.